Actually, I'm kind of glad Kayla's not here because we would be talking about cats. I don't love cats. I don't love them. I like kittens. I don't think I'd ever own a cat. I do like the dog cats, the ones that act like a dog. But if you hide 23 and a half hours a day under in like a cupboard, I think, anyway. Hey there, adventurers. I'm Chris. Welcome to Let's Just Go podcast. And as you can see, I'm doing this one solo. Kayla is very much under the weather, which is not atypical of her after she's traveled. She was actually in the Philly area recently. Got to hang out with her live and in person. She's under the weather and you don't want to hear her talk. I mean, let's be honest, we don't really want to hear her talk anyway. So it's just me today. Today, we are just going on a Royal Caribbean cruise. I know we've talked about cruising a lot in the past, with Virgin and Disney, but Royal is unique in its own way for a couple different reasons. I think just let's talk a little bit about the history of it. So 28 ships, they're growing. We'll talk about the newer ships in a little bit. Ports all over the world, an extensive fleet of ships from really brand new ones. Some of the largest cruise ships in the world are owned by Royal Caribbean. I've actually been on, most recently in this past August, I was on Oasis of the Seas out of New York, right? Drove 2 hours north, got on the cruise ship. It's a huge ship. Lots of people, lots of decks, just lots going on, which is really great for some people. They enjoy that option to be able to go and do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. And so there are a lot of onboard activities on many, many royal ships. Before we jump in, some of the older ships have been renovated. They call it amplified. So if you see that, you know that that's what they're referencing, is that it's been renovated. I think there's lots of there's kids clubs. So for the little kids, their kids clubs do not compare to Disney, right? Hands down, they don't. On some of the newer ships, they're definitely better, but some of the older ships are a little bit of a struggle. It's more like a one-room place, but it is still nice to give the adults something to do, and know that your child's being cared for. Honestly, some of these onboard activities really are awesome for the preteen and teens. Things like on Oasis of the Seas, it was Flow Rider. We zip lined. There is often escape rooms, which often have an additional cost. Actually, I think always have an additional cost for the escape room, but the other stuff is included. Miniature golf, right? One of the royal ships I was on had the trampoline where we were attached with bungee cords and we were jumping up on top of the ship. So lots and lots of things to do. Water slides for all ages, really, right? And so it's nice. In fact, I actually was speaking with a family who was like, they had been mostly on Royal and then went on Disney. And they're like, well, wait, our kids didn't feel like they had as many things to do. And I think that's true. There's a lot to pick and choose from on a Royal ship, things that you'll also never see anywhere else, right? So things like that, like their water diving shows on some of their newer, bigger ships. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And if you want some of those Broadway shows, you will have to go on some of their bigger ships. Their smaller, older ships aren't going to have, they're going to have shows and entertainment for sure, but they're not going to have those big Broadway productions. On Oasis, it was Cats, the Broadway show Cats, which apparently I don't know how that ever did well because that show was awful. But I'm glad I didn't pay for it. We went to see it. But if you want to see those sorts of things, if that's in your area of interest, you're going to want to be on a larger ship. They also often have ice skating rinks, which turn into laser tag, right? I mean, there's so many things to do. There's awesome, incredible ice skating shows. Some of the best shows I think I've ever seen on a cruise ship have been on Royal. I mean, outside of the amazing shows that Disney does, which you have an expectation almost for, the water show, the ice skating shows. I mean, these are things that you're not expecting to see when you're floating around the Caribbean. Worth your money. There are lots of ways that Royal does cruising that is traditional, and then some that's not so traditional, right? They do have that multi-floor main dining area for dinner. where you can potentially get the same waiter, but they also have the experience is a little bit different in that they have my time dining. So if you did want to pick and choose or just kind of show up for the main dining room, that's an option. There's always multiple other for cost additional dining, specialty dining as they refer to it as. Um, I don't know. I have a struggle with it. I'd love to hear your input because you're paying all this money to get on the cruise ship, and the main dining room is not bad. And in fact, the main dining room has every night half the menu is different and half the menu sort of stays the same. So to give you an idea that it isn't always, you're not just going and getting something on the same menu, same menu, same menu. So I have paid out of pocket before you get on. They have some deals they'll run for, specialty dining. You go to three of them at a discounted rate of maybe like 270 a person to go to three specialty restaurants. But I'm like, well, we just paid for the food. Why am I going to pay for more food? And really that's just a personal preference of what is of interest to you. The my time dining is convenient, especially on those longer port days, or if you're doing something like Mediterranean sailing. Honestly, oftentimes there's only my time dining available for a med sailing because they know that the ports are later. There's one thing I was disappointed in on Oasis of the Seas, and that was the buffet. The space did not feel any larger, right? It was the largest cruise ship I had ever been on, and it did not feel any larger of a space than any other cruise ship I had been on for the buffet. So there was often lines for it, and I felt like that part was not well orchestrated. I mean, there was one time where we stood and ate. I feel like could have been bigger. The casino on the ship, right? I mean, obviously that has a large draw, and I'm actually going on a free Royal cruise ship soon from my gambling. I'm pretty sure I paid for the cruise in the casino anyway, coming up. And so, I think there's a lot of folks on my last Royal cruise that were there because of what they had spent on previous sailings at the casino. So large gambling contingency as well on a royal ship. So lots to offer, lots to do, lots of pool space, but I would be remiss in saying you have to just go on one of their two brand new ships. The Icon of the Seas that just recently set sail for the first time. Unbelievable ship, huge, so many different offerings. It is a floating city, truly. And then we have Utopia coming in a few months in 2024. So the Utopia will be the best weekend at sea, as they're going to refer to it as. So it will do shorter 3-night and 4-night sailings out of Miami. Miami is their home port, their main home port. But again, they have cruise ships that sail out of really all the ports around the world, including Port Canaveral. I have a Royal Caribbean cruise coming up in the next 2 months. I'm excited to get back on the seas. I'm excited to be back on Royal. And I think you really just need to go. Friends, thanks so much for joining our abbreviated podcast here. And so feel free to follow us on social at Let's Just Go Pod. You can email us. We'd love to know what you think about Royal or what ships you've been on and which one you want to get on. Leave us some remarks. We wish Kayla well. And thanks for joining just me. Let's just go.